Hello and welcome to the introduction video of SEED Project Deliverable 1.1, a comparative report on SI in the participating countries. My name is Tanja Tamše and I'm a representative of one of the Slovene partners of the project, namely Center Nordum. Let's begin. The objective of the SEED project is to design and support the establishment of 4 competence centers for social innovation in Greece, Italy, Romania, and Slovenia. These competence centers will involve researchers, practitioners, policymakers, and civil servants to support the national European Social Fund managing authorities in fostering the development of social innovation in their countries. This comparative report is an analysis of social innovation ecosystem of the 4 participating countries, Italy, Greece, Romania, and Slovenia. The scope of the report is to describe the main elements of the existing social innovation ecosystem in a comparative manner and thus present their similarities and differentiations in a number of issues. Based on the data collected and the activities carried out, the report is structured in order to assess, in particular, the existing discourse, practices, and tools of social innovation, the principal stakeholders, the main drivers and possible barriers for the promotion and mainstreaming of social innovation in each country. So the report is organized as follows. In section 1, we describe the state of social innovation in each country, giving an introductory picture on the use of the term, the methodology used for mapping, consortiums discussions at national level for the creation of the competence centers, the actors involved, and the ongoing process of transformation and capacity building. Section 2 focuses on the thematic areas of social innovation, namely circular economy and environment, digital transformation and smart cities, health, education, cultural heritage and creative industries, poverty, migration, urban regeneration, welfare, and work. For each of these areas, we describe the objectives of innovative projects, their territorial context, and the tools used to implement the projects. In section 3, we present the actors of social innovation divided into 5 main categories: citizens and social movements, social economy actors, private companies and incubators, universities and research centers, and public institutions. In section 4, we discuss the existing drivers and barriers for social innovation in the participating countries, and we present possible suggestions for the future policy implementation. Finally, section 5 summarizes the features of the ecosystem of social innovations, and it concludes by describing the potential future tasks of national competence centers. Before starting to collect the data, we developed the methodology, the data collection tools, and we agreed on the definitions. In terms of definitions, we have discussed in particular the definition of social innovation. Among the many different definitions available, we decided to adopt the most recent definition used in the official European documents. Social innovation means an activity that is social both as to its ends and its means, and in particular, an activity which relates to the development and implementation of new ideas concerning products, services, practices, and models that simultaneously meets social needs and creates new social relationships or collaborations between public, civil society, or private organizations, thereby benefiting society and boosting its capacity to act. Let's proceed to describing the mapping process. The mapping practice has been done in the second half of 2021 and shows the current state of each partner country. It is also a work in progress that will continue all through the project until May 2023. It was an inclusive exercise where projects and initiatives that met specific social challenges and used socially innovative methods and tools were part of this exercise. It must also be stressed that the timeline of the exercise prevented us from mapping all national cases, and the results we show in the comparative report are an approximate picture of the status quo in each country. The first steps of the project required the partners to research the existing social innovation ecosystem. We had to establish the current state of play in each country, including the actors, the initiatives, support systems, funding mechanisms, impact measurements, and in this document, we aim to compare the four countries respectively. In the specific country report, the first task was to collect the definition and the current state of social innovation in each country. The aim was to develop a representation of values, purposes, and guidelines which will be relevant to maintain and foster the national ecosystems. On the other hand, and to generate new ecosystems of social innovation in other European countries. In the second part of the specific country report, the focus was on the thematic areas of social innovation, classifying and mapping all the projects, bottom up and top down. In the next step, the focus was on the stakeholders of social innovation. In addition, we reflected on drivers and barriers which have emerged from the existing social innovations in each partner country and which might contribute to the development of ecosystems of social innovation. Some of the elements covered were awareness of social innovation, funding, legislation, role of the local government, capacity building, and competencies, role of civil society and social economy actors, and others that might be specific to each country. In this chapter, each country also proposed some policy recommendations that would help to implement the national policies for each country to promote and mainstream social innovation. In the section of thematic areas of social innovation, we aim to give insights into 9 different thematic areas addressed by the projects of social innovation. It summarizes each country's material and highlights similarities or differences among them. It cannot inform deeply and fully about all countries' thematic areas, so it is recommended to take into consideration the country reports in order to have clearer national pictures. You can find the country reports on the SEED project website. Let's start with the thematic areas. The first one is circular economy and environment. The societal and cultural discourse about circular economy is widely connected with climate change and the environmental impact in all countries. There is a recent public and institutional attention on the topic, developed by European discourses about just transition and sustainable development goals, which Greece, Italy, and Slovenia mentioned as drivers for the national turn. However, bottom-up and civil society initiatives are still the majority in this thematic area. The main and common objectives of the socially innovative projects are reducing and recycling waste on the one hand and reducing carbon footprints and emissions on the other. Moreover, Italian projects aim to reduce food waste and to develop agricultural sector technology, while Greek projects focus on rearranging refugee integration management and on finding temporary uses for abandoned spaces. As concerns the territorial context, the MAP projects are developed mainly in urban and rural environments, besides a few digital initiatives in Italy and Slovenia. In Greece, the projects in rural context concern mainly beaches or agricultural areas. The Romanian urban initiative projects involve local communities. Let's go into the second thematic area, which is digital transformation and smart cities. Greece, Italy, Romania, and Slovenia describe a public discourse about digital transformation process on public institution attempts to digitalize social services, healthcare, mobility, productive processes, energy production, and so on. Greece, on the other hand, reflects on the role of COVID-19 in forcing the public sector to make a frog's leap towards digital transformation, contributing to prioritizing this change in all levels of society. In the last 2 years, both Romania and Slovenia appointed a national officer to boost the digital transformation in their countries. Italy, on the other hand, remarks its efforts to create connectivity, to provide services in real time, and allow administrations to be more efficient. In Greece, bottom-up projects have opportunities to grow due to the social and territorial discrepancies, which are not addressed systematically by the public institutions. In Italy, the high number of bottom-up projects is determined by the strong role of private companies and startups in pushing processes and products digitalization. Here we would like to remind you again that the mapped projects do not cover the whole set of existing innovative projects in each country, so it is acceptable to imagine that these objectives are only a minimal part of the ones really achievable. To move on to health. Even if the health sector is recognized as one of the most relevant issues in the national public discourses, all countries' partners acknowledge the difficulties in innovating and improving the health policies and services. In Greece, the recent pandemic has intensified the weaknesses of the system, and the need for more intense and well-organized proximity services, as well as primary health care, has been observed. In Italy, it has favored a growing awareness of the need for a patient-centered health system. Romania is suffering a huge brain drain of young doctors who are moving abroad for better working conditions. The cultural and societal discourse about social innovation in the health sector revolves around concepts such as science, research, and medicine. A part of the objectives of Italian projects reflects the need which emerged during the pandemic, a better doctor-patient relationship. Greek social innovations focus on improving nutritional habits and access to health services. And besides the later, Romanian and Slovenian social innovations aim specifically at innovating medical care. Let's move on to education. The educational system is narrated as quite worrying by the partners of Greece, Italy, and Romania. In all these countries, the public discourse revolves around the school system's difficulties of renovating itself, relating both to infrastructure and to curriculum. Italian partners underline, in particular, the inadequate digital equipment of schools, and in Slovenia in 2021, a network of public-private partnerships implemented a new initiative with the aim of supporting youth in entrepreneurial paths and in the job search. The issue of access to education is reflected in the objectives of social innovation projects in Greece, Italy, and Romania. Italian projects focus also on improving the intergenerational relationships between youth and elderly and the education of civic activation and civic engagement. The concern about the digital development of education in Italy and Greece is also detectable. The table shows that the digital context where Italian and Slovene projects develop, despite the majority of social innovation expanding in urban territorial contexts. Let's move to cultural heritage and creative industries. In all European countries, the pandemic uncovered immense contribution of culture and creativity to citizens' well-being, social innovation, economic growth, and international cooperation. However, the reactions and consequent behavior of public institutions have been diverse. For instance, Slovenian policymakers and businesses increasingly recognize cultural and creative sectors as key players in the construction of the new normal. In Greece, on the other hand, the importance of cultural heritage as a collective identity and as a key force in tourism and other economic sectors has not been reflected either in policies or in other mechanisms for cultural and creative industries. Within this thematic area, an important role is played by artistic activities and performances used as a tool to reach more inclusion and participation. The other two relevant objectives of social innovation projects are promoting existing cultural sites, predominantly in Italy and Romania, and renovating old buildings and into cultural and creative hubs, for instance, in Italy, Romania, and Slovenia. Let's talk about poverty next. The recent economic crisis and the COVID-19 pandemic have imposed poverty at the highest level of discourse, both political and public. All the countries involved in seed project are experiencing negative impacts in terms of wealth distribution, access to employment, and in general, social and economic well-being. The impressive effort of third sector actors is also marked by the medium big dimension of NGOs' work. It shows fields such as education and housing as two of the basic needs of disadvantaged and vulnerable groups, which the social innovation projects of this thematic area want to fulfill. All social innovation projects have an urban and rural expansion, but they adopt quite different tools to achieve these aims. Let's move to migration. Migration is a big issue in Greece and Italy. Despite the serious refugee wave 6 years ago, Greece is still lacking strategic policies, while the third sector is very active, backed up by many donors and focusing especially on inclusion and integration. In Italy, the discourse about migration is often instrumentally constructed by politicians and media, which benefit from it, feeding on the fears of citizens while providing simple and static answers to complex issues. Two issues are at stake in Romania: emigration, which the political sector is addressing by creating opportunities for the return of Romanian people, and human trafficking, which is a highly profitable business and increasing due to poverty, corruption, social inequality, and uneven territorial development. Due to recent events in Ukraine, Romania is now also a big supporter of refugee crisis, and many initiatives are sprouting also in Romania in this field. Urban regeneration. As in the previous thematic area, Greece and Italy share commonalities about their public discourse on urban regeneration. Bottom-up and top-down actions address the redesign of cities to enhance the proximity among inhabitants and communities, the management of public space as commons, and the social, environmental, economic sustainability. In Romania, urban regeneration is not very central on the public agenda. The main issues covered by the public discourse targeting the improvement of the energy efficiency of the urban buildings and earthquake consolidations. The biggest challenges in Slovenia are urban sprawl, mobility, degraded or underused inner urban areas, and energy efficiency. Most social innovation projects develop in urban territorial contexts, such as the numerous green initiatives undertaken in Ljubljana to regenerate the city, mitigate climate change, and preserve ecosystems. A minor part of projects is realized in rural areas, such as Greek villages that are suffering from the results of internal migration, but also from the uneven waves of tourists every summer. Welfare and work. Within the area of welfare, seed partners report that the main focus of their public discourses concerns working and employment policies. In the four countries, the political agenda is trying to foster the social inclusion of vulnerable groups such as NEET and the elderly in Greece, youth and disabled people in Italy, disadvantaged workers in Romania, and women in Slovenia. The roles of top-down and bottom-up actors are equally important in all countries. The Italian mapping recorded a high number of top-down projects because the public institutions, especially those at regional and national scale, play a role by contributing to innovate governance, processes, and partnerships at the local scale. Many are the objectives of the social innovation projects within this area. While addressing generally the working sector, in particular, social innovations aimed at supporting the creation of new social enterprises, fostering citizens' empowerment, creating new working possibilities, and developing approaches of social impact evaluation. We will now move to another chapter, which is stakeholders of social innovation. In this chapter, we scan through stakeholders and actors in the social innovation ecosystem. We looked at the roles and connections and their power to change the system for the better. We start with citizens. Citizens' movements and citizens' initiatives are most prominent in Greece, even though also in Slovenia and Italy they play a consistent role. Most of the Greek citizen movements were created during the years of crisis as an immediate response to the needs of society, and they operate at a very level. Well-known actions are the distribution of cooked meals, assistance to the homeless, distribution of clothes, and other materials to the ones in need. Other actions also include time banks, communal hospitals, and urban vegetable gardens. Citizen movements in Slovenia are active mostly in the field of climate change and environment, but also in the housing sector and women's rights. Italy has many active citizenship initiatives. Citizen movements in Romania are weaker than in other three countries, but it can be noticed that communities respond to charismatic leaders or social innovators and support social innovation causes through crowdfunding. Let's move to social economy actors. Under social economy actors, we talk about associations, cooperatives, social enterprises, and foundations. Associations and NGOs are one of the most important stakeholders in promoting social innovation in all four countries. In Greece, for example, associations used to be the most developed part of the third sector for decades, with many local initiatives all around the country, mainly in the cultural, regeneration, and environmental sectors and activities. In Greece, there are many NGOs, the majority being very small with a local scope, and a few large ones with national coverage. They're active in a variety of fields: children, health, migrants, environment, youth, and so on. At the same time, associations are also one of the most important drivers for social innovation in Romania, almost 30% of the mapped projects. They are involved in the design of new social innovations, but also in the production and funding through diverse fundraising strategies. In Slovenia, more than 40% of the mapped projects involve associations. Cooperatives. The cooperative model faces a lot of similarities between three of the analyzed countries. With roots in agricultural cooperatives in Greece, Slovenia, and Romania, the cooperative model in the three countries is changing. The cooperative model in the three countries is moving from the agricultural cooperative that did not provide value for the social innovation to new forms of cooperation, especially in Greece. Social enterprises. The role of social enterprises seems to be most robust in Romania out of the four analyzed countries. 19% of the mapped projects in Romania involve these stakeholders, 15% in Slovenia, 11% in Greece, and 4% in Italy. By comparison, Italy currently reports 1,874 social enterprises, while Slovenia 269. In Greece, there is no specific legal form dedicated to social enterprises. Foundations. The mapping has shown that the role of foundations in supporting social innovation is most present in Greece out of the four countries, being followed by Italy and Romania. There are several foundations in Greece that finance social innovation and social actions in general. They are very active in financing innovative actions and collaborating mainly with NGOs, but also some social enterprises. Some of these foundations take initiatives from the enhancement of the ecosystem, financing incubators or providing training to actors. In Romania, there are only a handful of visible foundations that invest in social innovators. We move to another stakeholder group, which are private companies and incubators, accelerators. So we start with private companies that have an important role in the social innovation ecosystem of all the four analyzed countries, but in particular in Italy. In Italy, companies that were identified as most representative for social innovation are B Corps and other private companies that place a strong emphasis on social responsibility. Italy represents an interesting laboratory for sustainable, responsible, and transparent business models. There are currently 123 B corporations in Italy, and they employ 14,146 people. Let's talk about incubators and accelerators. Starting in 2019, new acceleration programs appeared on the Romanian market for social entrepreneurs, backed by ESF money. There are also other acceleration programs, privately financed, specific for social innovators. Some of these are Consolidate, CNERB Venture Catalyzer, Social Innovation Solutions. There are no incubators targeting specific social innovators active in Romania. The situation is, however, slightly different in Greece, where there are some incubators, but only a few accelerators. In Slovenia, there is a very well-developed business incubator and accelerator ecosystem. There are around 25 entities that offer support to businesses. Universities and research institutes. Italian universities and research institutes have been traditionally recognized as very active in research on social innovation in Europe. More recently, the concept of social innovation has been integrated in researching areas ranging from bioeconomy to digital technologies, to cultural heritage and creative industry, management studies, and social sciences and humanities in general. Greek universities and research institutes have slowly incorporated social innovation in their education and research portfolios. There are courses on social innovation in some of the social sciences, and there is one master course on social innovation inaugurated recently. The Social and Solidarity Economy Master's degree of the Open University has been operating for 4 years now. Research institutes also have some projects on social innovation funded by various EU instruments. Similarly, universities in Romania and Slovenia have started to develop graduate programs for students in the field of social innovation, 2 Romanian universities and 5 Slovenian faculties. Some Romanian universities have also been involved directly in creating and delivering social innovations, especially in the climate and environment sectors. And in Slovenia, some universities have also knowledge transfer offices that contribute to sector connectivity with youth employment and youth engagement in system change. Public institutions, where we include local public institutions and agencies, regional public institutions and agencies, national public institutions and agencies, and European institutions and agencies. We will start with local public institutions. So local public institutions play a very important role in the social innovation ecosystem in the 4 countries. In Romania, they have developed over the past years some initiatives in the digital areas that target improving their collaborations with the citizens they represent. They're mostly using European funding to carry out their activities, but there are also other notable initiatives funded by their own resources. In Greece, many municipalities participate, even finance projects of social innovation together with other actors. Regional public institutions. Italy and Slovenia are the 2 countries where regional public institutions and agencies play an important role in the social innovation ecosystem, driven mostly by European funding. In Slovenia, the regional authorities already are providing guidance and opportunities to municipalities and local actors. A new call for proposal, published by the Slovenian Ministry of Economy, will empower them to become the main actors and facilitators in creating the SE ecosystem. At the Italian regional level, we acknowledge a growing interest of Italian regions to favor the development of stakeholders' local networks for social innovation. National public institutions. Even though they have an important role in promoting and funding social innovations, the national authorities in Greece and Romania still lack knowledge and understanding of the role and the potential of social innovation. In Slovenia, however, Ministry of Economic Development and Technology is providing the legislative framework and funding for social innovation. Even though the Italian national discourse about social innovation is also very recent, They started implementing the first fund dedicated to social innovation in 2018, the National Social Innovation Fund. European institutions and agencies. In all countries, European institutions and agencies play a very important role in funding social innovations. Romania traditionally uses less resources managed directly by the EU, as there are important financing opportunities managed directly by the Romanian national authorities. What about the relationships between the stakeholders? The role of social innovation is growing in all analyzed countries, and thus the relationship between the stakeholders of the four ecosystems is also very dynamic. It is clear that building stronger relationships within and across these ecosystems is needed, especially in the field of knowledge transfer. Social innovation is mostly driven by the private sector, with some national peculiarities, such as Greece has a very strong citizen involvement. In Italy, private companies and cooperatives have a strong role. In Romania and Slovenia, social enterprises are still the main drivers. European funding and support is, of course, crucial in all four countries. Let's move now to the drivers and barriers for the promotion and mainstreaming of social innovation. It is understood that, of course, policymakers are expected to create the right environment and develop instruments, policies, and architecture that support collaboration and the emergence and development of social innovation. But let's look at the drivers and barriers that are present in the four countries. We will start with drivers. Regarding the status of the ecosystem, more specifically, by having a more mature field, Italy grants special attention to the structure of their ecosystem and its internal links and synergies, while for Greece and Slovenia, the existence of a pluralistic ecosystem is considered a driver per se. On the other hand, for Romania, the participation of the private sector is understood as a well-noted driver for ecosystem development. The importance of the regulatory framework, supporting laws and tools are also highlighted by Greece, Slovenia, and Romania. It is understandable, though, that the regulatory framework can be both a driver and a barrier, pending the views of the actors. However, its existence is recognized as the first necessary step towards the recognition, framing, and development of social innovation. Finally, all countries recognize the importance of EU support, both financially and institutionally. The policy prioritization by the EU and the relevant EC programs and funding tools have assisted the actors in all countries either to kickstart or to mainstream their activities towards social innovation, thus providing the necessary environment for further development. Let's talk about the barriers. As a new concept as social innovation is, it is understandable that barriers still prevail in the overall assessment. The new discourse at the national level is considered as a worth noticing barrier by Italy and Greece mainly, although it is a reality for all four countries. This brings a difficulty for national and local authorities, but also other actors to comprehend the concept and its mechanisms, define it and differentiate it from other social actions. All public policies need a level of maturity to become understood at the national level and get the facilitation needed for mainstreaming. So the lack of awareness about the concept is an important barrier for all countries. Either awareness about the concept, of the funding tools, of the implemented projects and their results. The current low awareness level is an important barrier for all actors. Low funding mechanisms and lack of financing tools is another major barrier identified by most of the implementing actors. Although funding exists from EU sources, there is low national and regional or local funding in all countries. On the other hand, the ESG environment that the private sector currently operates in has brought the Greece and Romania private sector funding that assists the SI implementation. The countries consider that without an adequate mapping of the stakeholders and actors, their needs, problems, wills, and expectations can also not be tracked and thus integrated properly into the forthcoming policy design. So, shortcomings in the existing regulatory framework and the level of political prioritization is an important barrier for Greece, Slovenia, and Romania. From concept definition to implementation mechanisms to the diffusion of responsibilities with a variety of national authorities to the lack of incentives and data, all these issues lead to the lack of strategy and low political prioritization at the national level. And finally, the absence of comprehensive capacity building spread geographically within the countries in a variety of actors, including institutional ones, and in a pluralistic thematic palette is much needed to mainstream social innovation. And to conclude, the activities of mapping and analyzing social innovations in Greece, Italy, Romania, and Slovenia underline the great mushrooming of innovative projects aiming at a more just and equal society. However, individual social innovations are not enough to produce systemic change. They need to be nurtured and scaled to reach impact. For this reason, to better capitalize on the potential of each social innovation, an ecosystem that encourages, promotes, and scales such innovations is an opportunity for the whole society. The seed partner countries have not achieved the mature ecosystem of social innovation yet, but they are all walking the path towards its development.